Hello everyone and welcome to the video where today I'm going to be taking a look at the Mi-28N, a tier 7 helicopter in War Thunder, which is currently placed in the top spot of the Russian helicopter line at a BR of 10.3. Now the Mi-28 clearly follows the Russian trend of heavily armoured and fast helicopters, which has been carried over from the Mi-24 series. Firstly, the Mi-28's cockpit is essentially a large composite armour pod fitted with bulletproof glass of up to 44mm of thickness, of course giving your crew a fair bit of survivability. The helicopter is then powered by a pair of Klimov VK2500 turboshaft engines that are more than capable of powering the Mi-28 to just over 190 miles an hour in level flight, with over 2,000 horsepower per engine. Another thing in common with the Mi-24 series is the fantastic selection of armament presets. Many of these weapons have been seen on other helicopters, such as the S-8KO rockets, the 23mm gun pods, and the Igla air-to-air missiles, but there are a few new additions that are unique to the Mi-28. Firstly, the 9M120M Attacker. This is a further development of the 9M120 found on the Mi-35, with 150mm of additional penetration and just over a mile of extra range. These things will of course come in handy in both ground RB against enemy ground vehicles and in helicopter battles against enemy helicopters. Another new weapon, and a personal favourite of mine, are the S-13DF unguided rockets. These are 120mm rockets mounted in groups of 5 in their pods, only 73mm of pen, but that's hardly a problem when they have 19 kilograms of explosive mass, so any direct hit on a target will likely result in a kill. These rockets are real fun, especially in arcade tank assault, where you can just take out waves of bots with these rockets by just spamming them into a group and getting a bunch of kills. To finish off our quick talk on the weapons, you do of course also have a fixed 30mm cannon in a flexible turret underneath the nose. This is in fact the same gun that is featured on the BMP-2 infantry fighting vehicle and can have up to 81mm of pen on its ground target belts. This makes it capable of destroying both air targets and some lightly armoured ground targets. Moving on to additional systems, the Mi-28 can tick basically every box. Firstly, you have countermeasures in the form of flares. You have 128 flares, and these automatically fire when a locked-on projectile is inbound, thanks to the Mi-28's missile launcher indicator system. You also have night vision and also a thermal sight, something of which is relatively rare on Russian helicopters at the current time. This will give you a bit more capability in both day and night games, and will make seeing enemy units much easier. As with most top helis, you also have a radar warning receiver system that will notify you of any radars being used in your nearby area. Finally, your ATGMs can also be self-guided. They can lock onto an enemy target, and in this case will continue to guide towards that target even if you're in the third-person view, as long as your optics still has a clear sight of the target. This is something that you will have seen in the intro to this video. In terms of camouflage options, there are two: the standard skin, which personally I don't like so much, and then a semi-historical market camouflage, which is the one that I will be using in this video. In terms of game modes, we're going to be looking at helicopter enjoying confrontation, arcade ground assault, and ground realistic battles, although simulator battles are also an available game mode for the Mi-28. So starting off with helicopter battles, firstly let's talk about what you can do when you are in your stock configuration. Well, when you're stock, you have 80 S-8KO rockets, so the best play would be to go around the edge of the map and strike at enemy ground targets. As always, staying low would be advisable to best avoid being spotted. I would advise starting your research with getting the MAW modification and then also the new rounds for your gun. So firstly you can get some countermeasures, and then also you can improve your ground pounding capability with the ground target rounds for the 30mm cannon. Then move on to researching the S-13s, which can destroy bases. Firstly, only 5 of these are needed to fully destroy an enemy base, and then also this will then allow you to start researching the ATGMs, which are positioned directly after the S-13s in the modification tech tree. And when you have the ATGMs, you can of course then move on to attacking enemy helicopters. As for killing other helicopters, the attackers are rather effective, although I would not advise relying too much on the lock system, as in most cases the missile will miss and do no damage to the enemy helicopter. In fact, the lock-on system only tends to be effective if the targeted helicopter is coming directly towards you. Due to this, I tend to manually guide the missile and lead it as needed to hit the enemy target. Of course, the Igla air-to-air missiles are also available. While great for dealing with early helicopters that lack countermeasures, most helicopters on the battlefield tend to have countermeasures such as flares, which will usually cause the missile to go to waste. So due to this, I tend to use the Iglas more as a backup weapon to the attackers, which I use as my primary anti-heli weapon. Generally speaking, the Mi-28 is a good all-round helicopter in this mode, and in the right hands can certainly cause a fair bit of damage, especially with the correct use of systems such as the thermal sight to spot enemy helis from a safe distance and then engage as needed. So now to quickly touch on arcade tank assault. The Mi-28 really does shine here. Great amount of firepower for killing bot ground vehicles. The S-13s are damn fun in this mode and will one-shot pretty much anything. The air-to-air missiles are perfect for killing the aircraft with each wave, and your ATGMs have enough range to take down the enemy SPAA vehicles from a somewhat safe distance. Not many people really play this mode, and it does appear to have a fairly low reward cap, but it certainly can be a fairly chill time just killing waves of bots for a few rounds, so I certainly would advise people to try this mode. So now getting into the game mode that I'm sure most people are here for, ground realistic battles. So to start off, we are just in a single game in this video, one game, quite a long game, so I have cut it up a little bit to make it a bit shorter, and I'm just going to discuss various points that make this heli decent in this game mode. Firstly, of course, something quite common to top helis, the radar warning receiver system, the thing that you can see in the lower right side of the HUD. This, of course, will tell you when a radar is being used. It doesn't distinguish between friendly and enemy radars, but as you can see here, I have a ping. I can then, in the thermal sight, spot what is giving off that ping, in this case an ADATS. I can then lock the target, fire a missile, and I will be warned if he actually locks onto me, which he does not. I then kill him, I then get a missile warning, and of course the inbound missile warning system fires off flares automatically. Doesn't necessarily mean that that is an infrared guided missile, so that might lead to you wasting some flares from time to time. Use one of the Iglas to kill a scout. Overkill just a little bit, but I might as well take the enemy target out. And in this mode, I would advise actually taking some of those Iglas, because in top tier, you will of course mostly be facing the Americans, and you will definitely be facing supersonic jets doing close air support, and they will likely try and attack you. The ATGMs, it's highly unlikely you will be able to shoot down a supersonic jet coming at you near top speed, so using those Iglas is definitely needed to take down some of those faster enemy air targets. Another case here of using the thermal sight to spot an enemy vehicle, it just makes it much easier. Research, if you're planning on playing the vehicle in this game mode, research the thermal sight as soon as you can, because it just makes it much easier. You can stay further away, and then you can still spot enemy vehicles very easily. Here we have an M1 Abrams, saw him in the thermal sight. He was attacking another friendly vehicle, who unfortunately he did kill. Get a first shot on, and then I fire a second shot into the side of his turret, and that kills him. As you will see here, I am using the lock-on system. As said, against moving targets, it's not the best, but in most cases tanks are going slow enough, or not moving at all, that, you know, it will relatively easily go for that target and hit it quite accurately. Now I'm actually behind the enemy spawn, and I spot an ADATS. Currently not coming up on my radar warning indicator. He does then come up after a short while. There tends to be a lag. It takes a while for it to initially come up. He fires a missile at me. I dodge as quickly as possible. Just missed the missile, not quite sure why its proximity fuse didn't go off, might have been due to my altitude, but that is another ADATS kill. 2 ADATS have been killed so far in this game, and we're about to get a third using my personal favourite weapon on this heli, the S-13 DF unguided rockets. I see an ADATS driving along nice and happily from the enemy spawn, spam the rocket, and then very quickly turn away so he doesn't shoot me. Luckily, you know, I hull break him, or I set off the ammunition. What basically happened is the rocket landed nearby, a piece of shrapnel hit one of his missiles, and As any ADATS player will know, if that missile gets hit, it's highly likely the whole vehicle is just going to ammo rack and explode, which is what happened there. Another SPAA, we've got a Sergeant York, I believe it is. He locks onto me. As you can see, the radar warning indicator beeping as he is locked onto me. He drops smoke, but he doesn't do it quite fast enough, and my attacker missile hits him and hull breaks him. At this point, I have a single air-to-air missile left, so I decide to head back to the airfield. I don't go to the heli base anymore, I go to the airfield. With supersonic aircraft flying around, with more long-range anti-aircraft vehicles, the helipad can be a little bit dangerous, so I tend to go all the way to the airfield, just to be safer. But once I get there, I land, I rearm, I take off again, and I head back to the battlefield. At this point, there's literally a dozen people left in the game. The enemy team do win this game eventually. First off, another AA, Sergeant York. A lot of my kills have been AAs. In most cases, spotting and destroying an AA vehicle at this point with this heli is easier than an actual tank, because not only are they usually bigger and easier to see in the thermal sight, but also you have the radar warning indicator which literally says, oh yeah, in that rough direction there is an AA vehicle. You then use the thermal sight, bing bang boom, there they are, fire a missile, take them out. Although of course in this case the Sergeant York is not dead, he dropped some smoke, so what I do is I fire a missile. As I'm coming into view, I see where he is and just roughly guess his location, luckily clipping the back of his vehicle and hull breaking him, giving me yet another kill. And unfortunately that was my last kill of this game, as I come across an M1A2 and I decide, you know what, let's shoot him, without realizing that he has a proximity fuse round. Yeah, I get AA'd by an M1A2. But, it was a good game overall. Got a bunch of kills, 7 ground kills, got an air kill. Not too bad overall. Definitely, that was my best game, at least so far, in the Mi-28. To sum up Ground RB, though, it is a very good helicopter. The thermal sight, again, as with any vehicle with a thermal sight, makes it much easier to spot enemy vehicles. This can be incredibly useful on much more sort of covered ground forces maps, more urban maps, maybe maps with more forest area. That can be very useful for spotting more hidden enemy vehicles. The radar warning receiver, as always, great for knowing roughly where enemy SPAAs are, or if they are actively trying to kill you if they lock onto you. As said previously, I would advise in Ground RB always taking at least a few of the Igla air-to-air missiles, as it is incredibly likely that you will come across either supersonics or just some jet aircraft that, generally speaking, you won't be able to shoot down with your gun, and your ATGMs most of the time won't be able to hit that accurately. If they're coming directly towards you, sure, an ATGM might work, but in most cases you're going to want to take some air-to-air missiles to try and deal with those. The ATGMs, of course, are a further development of the missiles used on the Mi-35. You have just over a mile of additional range, you have more penetration. Both of these things mean you can firstly sit at a much more safer distance, much further back from the actual battlefield, and therefore further from enemy AA vehicles, but also it's much more likely you're going to pen and do significant damage to enemy ground vehicles. Overall, this is one of the more nice all-round helicopters I've flown in Ground RB so far. Certainly have enjoyed it, and it definitely is something that I'm going to be flying much more in this game mode. Another thing, the skins. As I said earlier, didn't like the I really don't like the stock camouflage, and it was really nice to see a market skin get added. Very nice semi-historical camouflage. This was a camo on a real Mi-28, but it was an Mi-28N that had various upgrade packages. So therefore it's not exactly the same as the one we have in War Thunder, hence the semi-historical designation. Very nice skin though, and of course, if you don't want to get this on the market or you can't afford it there, do go over to live.warthunder, look up the Mi-28 skins, and this will be there and you can download it as a user skin. Still though, I do feel this, at least for the time being, is a worthy vehicle for the top spot on the Russian helicopter line. I feel in the future we're going to get the Kar 52, which of course is basically the premium Kar 50 with a side-by-side seat cockpit and much more of the Vikir anti-tank missiles. I believe that can carry 24 of them, whereas the Kar 50 can only take 12. So that's going to be pretty damn powerful. Should be a tech tree vehicle, I would hope, and I'm sure that will definitely take over from the Mi-28. But nonetheless, the Mi-28 currently, compared to other top helis, is certainly very worthy of this position. It is a fun vehicle, I enjoy it very much. I enjoy it in Heli EC, despite the Kar 50 spam. In Ground RB, of course, you're with the Kar 50s, so that's not a problem, and it is a very capable vehicle in Ground RB, as you have seen. And in Tank Assault, It is my go-to heli for that game mode because of the S-13 rockets. Enemy bots come in, fire some rockets at them, and they just get obliterated. So I absolutely love it in Ground Arcade Assault, and I would advise anyone who hasn't played that mode, go give it a go, because also every 24 hours when you play a game, you get a trophy with a booster in, and you can just collect a bunch of boosters. So why wouldn't you? Anyway though, that's going to be it from me for now. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. If you enjoyed the video, please consider dropping a like. That would be very much appreciated. Maybe even subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.